I know which all devotees have joined the call today, please?
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Preeti Dasi from Charlotte. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Preeti Devi Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for joining the Bhakti Sangha Morning Japa conference call every day. Welcome.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Arvind Akshda from Chicago. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Arvindaksh Prabhuji. Please accept my Dandavat Pranam Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for consistently joining the Morning Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Keep joining, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is Niharika from Bloomington.
Haribol Niharika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for joining the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji, Dandavat Pranams. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Kentucky today. Hare Krishna.
Haribol Tiffany Mataji, welcome from Kentucky today. I hope probably some spiritual activities have drawn you there. Please accept my humble obeisances, Tiffany Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you again for your services, Mataji. Keep joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Radharani Devidasi from Baltimore.
Haribol Radharani Mataji, what a wonderful name you have, Mata. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Welcome to the Morning Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. This and all the devotees, please. This is Candramauli Dasi from Baltimore. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kramudiki Mataji, Dandavat Pranam Mataji. Jai Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our Guru Maharajas. Thank you very much for joining the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference, Mataji. Welcome.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Gurudev. This is Radha from Baltimore.
Haribol Radha Mataji. Please accept my Dandavat Pranam Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Maharajas. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Welcome to the Morning Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vardhana from Atlanta, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Ratna Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Thank you very much for joining the Bhakti Sangha Morning Japa conference call, Mataji. Welcome.
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Geeta from Texas.
Hare Krishna Geeta Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Thank you very much for joining the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call, Mataji. Please keep joining.
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Candramauli Devidasi from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji. Please accept my Dandavat Pranam at your lotus feet, Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Thank you always for all your services, Mataji. Please keep blessing Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raleigh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji. Thank you so much for always, every day, consistently joining the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call, Mataji. Many pranams at your lotus feet. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Please keep joining Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Mataji.
Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Meena from Atlanta.
Haribol, Meena Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Thank you very much for joining the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Is it the first time you're joining or have you joined before?
I have joined before, Mataji.
Keep joining, Mataji. Thank you very much for joining the call.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranams to you and all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Lalitangi Radha Devi Dasi, and I especially want to thank you for your very, very beautiful chanting, Mataji. I miss them when you don't join. It rings in my ears throughout the day. Thank you so much.
Oh, Haribol Mataji, your chanting and Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call, all the devotees chant so sincerely. So I miss it. Even if I'm traveling, I always put it in my ear. Please accept my humble obeisances, Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Thank you for joining early morning Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Please keep joining, Mataji. Thank you for your association.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Varsha from Charlotte.
Haribol Varsha Mataji, please accept my Dandavat Pranam Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for your valuable association, Mataji, every day with chanting, and thank you for joining all the classes. Please keep joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. This is Padma from Virginia.
Haribol Padma Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Thank you very much for joining the early morning Bhakti Sangha Japa conference. Shamaguri Mataji, were you about to say something?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. This is Shamaguri Devi Dasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna Shamaguri Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet, Mata. Please keep blessing this Bhakti Sangha morning Japa conference call, Mind Association, Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for your association, joining every day and doing services. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Mata.
Maharaj has not joined yet.
No.
Devotees can introduce.
Yes. Please continue to introduce your name. It's wonderful to hear so many people joining Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call and giving their association.
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Parima from Philadelphia. Please accept my humble obeisances. Dandavat pranams to all devotees on the call.
Haribol Parima Mataji. Please accept my Dandavat Pranam at your lotus feet, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Many thanks for joining the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call, Mataji. Please do keep joining and please keep spreading the word to your friends and family members. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Please don't hesitate to announce your name. It's wonderful to take the devotee's name in this Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. We are still waiting for Maharaja. He should be joining any minute.
Hare Krishna Nina Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Induleka Karna Devi Dasi from Lincoln.
Haribol Induleka Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances, Mata. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for all your consistent services, Mataji. Thank you for your valuable association. Hare Krishna. Is there anybody else who would like to announce their name with us today?
Yes, Mataji, we can do introduction.
Today we are very fortunate to have His Holiness. Today we are very fortunate to have His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj joining us, and he would continue to enlighten us from Canto 5, Chapter 10, Verse 3. But prior to that, we will hear a brief introduction from Tiffany Mataji. Mataji, if you could kindly give a brief introduction. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj is a disciple of ISKCON founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He is also an initiating spiritual master within the ISKCON movement. Maharaj was born in New Jersey in 1947 and came in contact with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in Denver, Colorado at the age of 24. In 1973, he began practicing Krishna consciousness in New York City, and shortly thereafter began serving at the New Vrindavan Farm Community in West Virginia. That same year, he received initiation from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In 1986, His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj accepted the sannyas order and began preaching in Cincinnati and Columbus, Ohio. In 1995, he began serving as a resident sannyasi in Chicago, where he was based until 2013, when he relocated to Karlovac, Croatia. At present, Maharaj offers spiritual guidance around Europe, the USA, and India. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Tiffany Mataji, for your wonderful introduction of Maharaj. Maharaj needs no introduction. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. Whenever you're ready, Maharaj, you may go ahead and take the call over. Today, you'll be kindly preaching us from Canto 5, Chapter 10, Verse 3. Haribol.
Om Gyantimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pastyatya De Satarine Panchakalpa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Paebhacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam 5th Canto 10th chapter, verse number 3. We go right to the translation. This is a continuation of this particular pastime with Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rugana. Translation: when the palanquin carriers heard the threatening words of Maharaj Rahugana, they became very afraid of his punishment and began to speak to him as follows. Srila Prabhupada's purport: according to political science, a king sometimes tries to pacify his subordinates, sometimes chastise them, sometimes divides them, and sometimes rewards them. In this way, the king rules his subordinates. The bearers of the palanquin could understand that the king was angry and that he would chastise them. So, Jad Bharat is the focus here, and that he has been forcibly taken to be a palanquin carrier for this king, King Rahugana. This king happens to be going on to a holy place. He's actually going to Kapila Ashram. He's actually in the process of going to a holy ashram. One of his carriers didn't show up or it was lost. So they needed one. So they found Jud Bart just in an open field and thought he was a deaf and dumb person and brought him to be a carrier. But they didn't know Jud Bart is a great Brahmana whose consciousness is fixed on seeing the soul in all living entities. And therefore, when he was asked to do this service, he also was very much aware that there were many ants on the ground where he was walking. And because of that, he would try to avoid the ants. And this caused a shaking of the palanquin. And therefore, the king was getting upset. Now the king is responding to his disturbances, and he's angry, and he's directing it towards the bearers who feel like they're going to get chastised unduly because of this other man. So here we see a little bit in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about political science. Political science means to somehow rule your subordinates by acting in different ways towards them. This is a technique for keeping order. If you chastise someone all the time, you'll lose them. If you reward them all the time, they'll continue to make mistakes. And so does both, he even divides them. And this is political science, so we're getting a little understanding here. Now he's ready to chastise, and the palanquin bearers are overwhelmed with fear. It says here, very much afraid, and they don't know what he's going to do. And so they'll stick up and try to defend themselves and blame everything on Jud Bart, which kinds of leads to the folding of this whole pastime, where Jud Bart will instruct the king in the reality of existence. The king thinks he's a king, and that is a problem. If we think we're anything that other than who we actually are, that is called insanity. We only have one identity. The identity has multi definitions to it, but there's only one identity. And that is Jiver Sarup Oi Krishnera Nityadas. That is our only identity. We change material identities life after life. Therefore, whatever material identity we have is lost at the time of death. It's acquired at the time of birth, and it's acquired throughout the life. But we only have one continuous identity, Jiver Sarupai Krishnera Nachidas. We are only one thing. We are the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is our only identity. We accept material identities for the sake of functioning in the material world. And so more like role playing, as Shakespeare said, the entire world's a stage. It's a dramatic stage too. Everyone's playing a role, and sometimes, not sometimes, but all the times we play many roles. If we are a mother, we are also a wife. Sometimes we are also a friend of someone else. Maybe we also have a job as a teacher. So we play many roles, but these roles are all superfluous to our identity. We have to play the roles in order for us to somehow go on in life accordingly. But we should be very much aware that we are not the roles we play. One senior devotee in our movement was preaching to one very nice couple in South America. And they were very respectable, quite opulently situated. And he was telling them, you are a soul. You're actually a spiritual being. You're a soul. And he's trying to help them understand that they were something different than their physical forms. So the lady was listening and she responded, said, "Oh, yes, I know I'm a soul, but I'm a female soul." In other words, she identified the gender with the spiritual essence. So gender refers to, of course, there is spiritual gender too, but that is not like material gender. Material gender forces us to act in so many different ways. Spiritual gender gives us a position to serve in a certain way. Yeah, it's very hard for the conditioned soul to get the beyond the body conception of life. Even if you're trying to develop that transcendental consciousness or that awareness of one being above the material energy, the entire material world is reinforcing the opposite. Constantly, you're being reinforced with the idea you are this body. One of the ways you can somehow reduce the effects of that is live simply. The body doesn't mean the body does not mean that we have to somehow or other fortify it in so many different ways. Living simply helps us to get beyond the bodily conception of life. That's why simplicity is one of the main principles of devotional life. Simple means, as Krishna mentions, or as the Shastra mentions, to take what you need to keep body and soul together. And that's all. Of course, if you're a householder, you might need a little more to maintain the griha. But in general, we don't really need much. we need some association with others, relationships, association. We need food, and we need a dwelling where we can sleep at night, like that. And that's pretty much it. Some food, some housing, and some relationships. And whatever else we have, maybe we have some books and clothes. But these things all should be done accordingly, especially when it comes to the body, to try to decorate the body, to try to make it so comfortable. I just switched my locations about a few days ago. So now I'm in a very, very more simplified lifestyle, being in particular lifestyle for 1 year, which was quite nice in terms of the facilities I had to do everything I wanted to do. I'm living in a more simplified lifestyle now, and I'm really enjoying it much better. It makes life much more easier to focus on Krishna, and it gives you more time for focusing on Krishna. And it also facilitates more relationships. Because simple people have a tendency to spend more time with each other and less time alone with all the mechanical gadgets that we've been blessed with by modern society, which are another forms of addiction. People get addicted to their computer, to their cell phone, especially to their cell phone. They think without the cell phone, how is it possible to live? And this is not an exaggeration. I was giving a lecture in Northeastern University, which is in Boston area, a few years ago, about 3 years ago. And at the end of the we were talking about, the modernization of society and all of the different encumbrances we have coming with that. And then we got directly right into the discussion on cell phones. And we were talking about cell phones. And at the end of the class, one young man, he came up to me and he was very distressed looking. And he said to me, Swami, if I don't have my cell phone for 6 minutes, I go crazy. Exact words he said. I could see it on his face. He wasn't exaggerating. Him and his cell phone had come to a very, nice marriage. They looked like they were going to be internally engaged in, associating with each other. And so people get so attached to these material things that they become not only part of them, it becomes their own focus in life. So living simply, it's not that you shouldn't have a cell phone. I have a cell phone. I have a computer also. But you should live in such a way as to minimize the usages of these things to what is absolutely, practically, barely necessary, and not beyond. Because modern civilization will simply push you for more and more and more. And if you have that desire, you'll be finding yourself encumbered more and more. And then there's not much time for Krishna consciousness. So living simply helps to get beyond all of the difficulties that come with living in the material world. And that facilitates Krishna consciousness nicely. So knowing we are not this body means acting. We just say, well, I know I'm not this body, but we're acting like we are the body. So therefore, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. One should cultivate knowledge and renunciation side by side. And that way we can make nice advancement in Krishna consciousness. Because this knowledge will free you from the material attachments along with the power of your service. And then the less you have, the more you're happy, actually. And that is a fact. Sometimes we think the more I have, the more I'll be happy. And we fall into that. And a lot of times we find that even the stuff we have, we don't even use. We throw it in the closet. There was a revolution in Africa, many few decades ago, maybe 30, 40 years ago, maybe even farther, maybe back in the 1950s or 60s. Well, one particular king of one African country, his name was Haile Selassie. And he was kind of a despotic ruler. And he was overthrown. I think he was killed. And so they came into his quarters to clean out whatever was there. They went into his wife's area, and they counted 3,000 pairs of shoes she had. Can you imagine 3,000 pairs of shoes? That's 3,000. She wasn't a centipede. She only had 2 feet. But, you know, we somehow or other see how one can get ridiculously enamored by the material energy. One has some extra wealth. They spend it on useless things. I remember I was reading in the newspapers. This was in Chicago when I was staying in Chicago. I was reading in the newspapers that there was a type of addiction. You know, we have addiction. People are addicted to drugs. People are addicted to alcohol. People are addicted to eating. People are addicted to sex life. These are all phobias that people have, and there's many more. They actually have clubs and treatments for people who are addicted to different things. But there's another type of addiction that I was just appalled, not appalled, shocked to hear about. And it was called Shoppers Anonymous. People who are addicted to shopping. Now, you would think it would be the rich people, but no, it was people, even ordinary people. They had become so addicted to shopping that they couldn't stop shopping. And sometimes they would go into big debts because they couldn't pay. And they would lose, you know, some of their property, be put into great difficulties because of just spending money. And people were spending like more money than they were making just on buying things. And it became an addiction, really. And there was a group that was born called shopaholics. They were called shopaholics. It's like we have alcoholics, then you have shopaholics. So I thought, wow, this is really strange. But then I could understand from Shastras that this idea of greed, when it's not restricted, it can extend itself out unlimitedly. There are people who have so much money and still want more. They're not even using all they have, always thinking of getting more. There's people who position and power, never satisfied. They want more. So that's the material world. And so therefore, devotee knows that this is all a waste of time, a waste of energy, a deviation from Krishna consciousness. Better to live simply. Simply as we can, and execute Krishna consciousness nicely. It's not that you have to go back to farm life. Of course, we do recommend it in many cases. But we should, not be enamored by all the things that come our way for purchase. All we need is food, relationships, and opportunities for devotional service. Krishna provides these things automatically. We have to work hard for the extra stuff we want. And sometimes we get it, doesn't make us happy. We lose it, it makes us unhappy. So yeah, this is material life. So the way I brought this up is that the king could not understand that he is a spirit soul. Although he's playing the role of a king, he's enamored by that role. And therefore, he thinks he's the ruler of subjects. So all of the different designations that the living entity material world or even acquires due to their own desires are all superfluous to our real identity, which is eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is our only identity. When Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati he was asked, how many disciples do you have? And of course, he never identified himself as a spiritual master. He used to say, anyone who says he's a guru is a guru. Now, guru means, spiritual master. Guru means cow, animal. So what he was saying is that anyone who identifies themselves with the role they play is no better than an animal. And when he was asked how many disciples he has, he said, I have 4, 2 arms and 2 legs, and they carry out my instructions. Now, he wasn't so much interested in being put in that category of a guru. He was more like seeing himself as, I am serving those persons who come to me in order for them to become Krishna conscious. And therefore, when he was asked another time, how many disciples you have, he said, I have no disciples. They're all my teachers. I learn something from each and every one of them. So Prabhupada had that same vision, our spiritual. He was seeing his disciples as representatives of his spiritual master, who was sent to him by his spiritual master to assist him in his service to his spiritual master. That was Prabhupada's vision of his disciples. He said that. He said, I'm seeing all of you as simply representatives of my spiritual master. He has sent you to help me so I can serve him by spreading Krishna consciousness. So this is proper consciousness. It's not something that is relegated to a few people. Even if we don't have it in realization, we should understand it in theory, that we are nothing but this material, with this spiritual existence. The material existence is simply superfluous to our existence. Housewife, or a king, a servant in some kind of restaurant. In other words, whatever role we're playing, keep it as it is. There was a famous actor, his name was John Barrymore. He was a playwright, and he would write his own plays, and then he would also take part in one of the characters in the play. But he was the writer of that particular part that he's playing, but he was always separate from that because he knew the whole play, and he knew he was playing a role. Sometimes even in dramatic circles, people get so involved in the roles they play that they actually start to act in that role. That happened a couple times in India. I don't remember the exact details, but there was one play where one person actually took the part completely of the person he was playing, which was a bad person, and he killed one of his fellow actors in the play. So it's we do that sometimes. We get so absorbed in our roles that we demand people to recognize us in the role. And you'll see that in this particular pastime. The king is really proud that he's a king, and the pelican bearers are simply his subordinates. And you'll see, this is a really, really interesting section of the Bhagavatam. It's probably one of the most interesting. We've done plays, dramatic expressions on these sections. This is so interesting. And you'll see how the king is shocked into realizing he's something who he's not something who he thinks he is. Judd Bart really enlightens him in transcendental knowledge. It's really quite powerful. And the way he does it is so convincing for each and every one of us. This is a very important part of the Bhagavatam because it helps us to understand that whatever identity we have, and we see from this particular pastime how Jad Bharat, we actually do one play called The Three Lives of Bharat Maharaj. He's Bharat Maharaj, the king in the forest. He's Bharat Maharaj, the deer, and then Bharat Maharaj, Jad Bharat. So you'll see that throughout the Bhagavatam in this area, that he's playing the king of the world who retired into the forest, gets attracted by a deer, becomes a deer, and then in his next life becomes a Brahmin who simply acts like he is deaf, dumb, has no intelligence, but he's simply playing that role in order not to get bothered by the activities of the material existence. He doesn't want to interact with anyone because he knows it's just more of an entanglement. He's simply happy to finish out his life and go back home, back to Godhead, but meditating on the Lord within his mind and within his heart. Now, this is an interesting section. So I'll stop here and maybe we can open it up for questions.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your wonderful class. Very nectarian class indeed, very informative. Devotees, if we have any questions, we can ask Maharaja now. Your class has made everybody very sublime, Maharaj. It's very wonderful class. I think everybody was absorbing it to the core of their heart. Thanks always for reminding us about our position. Thank you. And it's
That's
very...
what Prabhupada did that all the time. In all his lectures, he's always coming back to the point that you have to understand you belong to Krishna eternally. Keeping that foremost in our life, we can go about our activities.
Very true. And I also learned something new, that even the spiritual have a spiritual gender. Very interesting to know. In order to serve again Krishna.
Yeah, we have gopis, we have cowherd boys, we have Mother Yasoda. They're all pure spiritual beings. So in the spiritual world, they're also playing, because as Prabhupada said, the spiritual world is simply, or the material world is simply a reflection of the reality. What we live here, mostly in this world, with arrangements, friends, family members, and others, is simply as I said, a mirror reflection of the reality. It looks the same, but the essence and the substance is completely different. So yeah, in the spiritual world, there are animals, there are trees, there are plants, there are women, there are men, there are the varieties that we see in this world. Many of it are in the spiritual world also.
Right. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for your explanation. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your service. Thank you for always giving such a wonderful class. I was very touched by your reminders to live simply, because it is such a challenge to do that in the material, when we're living in, environments that are full of, material things, and we're always being, at least in this country, we're always being advertised to, everywhere you go, someone's trying to get you to buy something. So I'm so grateful for that reminder. And also your class also made me feel even more grateful for Bhagavatam, because just in listening to you explain, the different pastimes of Maharaj Bharat, just made me excited about the coming verses and purports, and also made me feel like, we're so fortunate to get this knowledge every morning. Every morning we have this opportunity, and it's very rare. Most people don't do this. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment based on what you said, is that, and this is a principle that exists, in material life, taught that in order to live or even to be successful, they give you a whole list of things you need. In spiritual life, you don't need anything. All you need is Krishna. When you have Krishna, you have everything. In material life, if you don't have Krishna, then in order to somehow or other substitute for the absence of Krishna, we surround ourselves with so many things that we think we need. But as soon as we bring Krishna in our lives, then everything, there's no need anymore. Everything is provided. Even if you do need something on a material world, when you have Krishna, whether you get it or don't get it doesn't matter, because Krishna's there. In other words, connecting with Krishna is so satisfying that what other need is there? If we don't have Krishna, then we have a whole list of things that we think we need. And people make up for their lack of relationship with Krishna by trying to substitute it with the things of this world. It's trying to fortify that need for a loving relationship by with things, or even with, positions, or even with, some people have a lot of money and they just feel good because they have money. It gives them this false sense of that, I got something. But if you don't have Krishna, it doesn't matter what else you have.
Earlier, when you were speaking of people with lots of money and what they're doing, and now I was thinking of, now they're all going to space. They have nothing better to do with their money than to go up into space. These billionaires, and it's so sad when they could have such an impact on what's happening on this planet, but they spend billions of dollars to fly into space.
Yeah, and then when Prabhupada talks about that, they don't want to stay there, they want to come back. So what's the use of going? He talks about that. $5 billion for the space program, that's years ago, it was $5 billion. That was about 40 years ago, more, 60 years ago. And it was just, what did they accomplish? Nothing. We got some rocks, but the rocks are from Arizona anyway. So that was billions and billions of dollars of money were thrown away on some fantasy. Prabhupada said you can't go to the moon unless you qualify yourself. The moon is a higher planet. You can't get in there, not simply by some mechanical device. You have to have a body for the atmosphere to live there. And that body comes by way of karma, or, pious activities, because the moon is a heavenly planet. Oh, they don't know anything. They just think for some adventure. Use the but we can travel beyond space back to the spiritual world simply by the power of one's devotional service. Because according to your activities, you are existing in a particular place within a particular environment. Your desires plant you to where you are and who you are. If you change your desires, you change your activities. You change your activities, you change the atmosphere you live in. Or you transform that atmosphere into the same kind of activities you're performing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we look around and see everything around you and everything you have and everything you are. It's simply a product of our consciousness. If you want to be different, change your consciousness. In order to continue to change your consciousness, you have to change your desire. Desire is the foundation for activity, which formulates consciousness. So we desire to serve Krishna, and then for the Krishna will facilitate according to the level of our desire. Because desires are not stagnant; they motivate us in a certain direction, depending on the quality of that desire. Sometimes you wonder how people are living the way they're living. It's because of their desire. That's right. You ask them to change their activities, they can't because their desire is in the same way as their activities are. That's why when you put people in jail for crimes, generally they come out and perform crimes again, even though they get punished in jail and suffer. Why? Because the desire is still there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for everything that you just said. It was so enlivening, and just the way you always put things. I really appreciate that our desires plant us where we are. Yes, because our karma is what, our karma ends up, our desires end up as our karma. So thank you so much for that.
Our particular situation is a reflection of our desires, which is pushed by our karma. Our karma pushes our desires in a certain way. So Krishna consciousness is up karma. When you start performing devotional service, you change your consciousness, you change your activities, you change everything. You change the quality of your activities anyway.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Dear Guru Maharaj, Hare Krishna, please accept our humble obeisances. And glories to you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for reminding us about simplicity. And also, I was struck by your statement that when we have Krishna, then we really don't need so many things. And simplifying our life actually becomes easier. I also was struck as you were speaking about a statement made by Sarojini Naidu of Mahatma Gandhi. He was trying to be simple and doing so many things, of course, a very pious person and all that, but his goal of being simple, living in poverty, she went on to say, you have no idea how much wealth it requires to keep that man in poverty. So that was very significant, that without Krishna, even if we try for simplicity, it's only going to be another rearrangement of the material energy. I just was thinking about that. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, that's a good point. A really good point. And people who try to live simple without Krishna, they just wind up getting involved in other kinds of sense gratification. That's all.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai Sister Radha Gopinath ki jai. Thank you Maharaj for your deep devotional association. Koti koti dhanvat pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances. Behalf of all Bhakti Sangha Vaishnava.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vrinda Gopika.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have one question, but it's not, it may be related or not related. Can I ask? I have a question.
Regarding?
I have one question. Can I ask? It may be related or not related with this class.
Yeah, sure.
So if person commits suicide, so what is the destination and how can be redeemed?
Well, committing suicide means that you're trying to get rid of your material body, but your material desires don't go with your material body because material desires are stuck in the subtle body. So the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego are the places of the material desires, not the physical body. So getting rid of the physical body leaves you still with material desires, but without a physical body. And therefore, many persons who commit suicide become ghosts. They have a subtle body, but they have no physical body. And therefore, they cannot fulfill their desires. Therefore, they bother other living entities by trying to take over their bodies in order to facilitate their own material desires. So suicide is not a solution. In fact, it just creates a bigger problem. People suffer and they think by getting rid of their body, they can end their suffering. That can only happen when you can achieve a spiritual body. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, when he heard that Sanatana Goswami, he would come and see Sanatana Goswami every day. Sanatana Goswami contracted these sores all over his body that were oozing. They were wet sores. And Lord Chaitanya would come up and see Sanatana every day and embrace him, and these sores would touch the body of Lord Chaitanya. And this was making Sanatana Goswami really, really miserable. That Lord Chaitanya's body was being contaminated from the sores on his body. The Lord didn't mind because he saw beyond all that and he saw the greatness of Sanatana. But Sanatana was thinking, what can I do? So he decided to commit suicide. And the Rath Yatra was coming up, so he was going to throw himself underneath the Rath Yatra cart and end his life. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found out, he became quite upset. He said, Sanatana, you cannot destroy this body. This body doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me. Therefore, you're a thief. You're actually trying to destroy another person's property. Therefore, you should be punished. What he was saying is that, your body doesn't belong to you. You have dedicated to my service. Therefore, it belongs to me. The Lord was saying that. So our body is meant to be used for the service of the Lord. And then the body if it's not being used, then the body is simply, being used in the wrong way. And when you use something in the wrong way that doesn't belong to you, there's punishment that comes by way of it. Because the body is given to us, it's not that, well, I made the body and it belongs to me and I can do what I want with it. Krishna allows you to use it in a way that you want to, but he also gives you the intelligence how to use it. So those who commit suicide, their destination is usually a ghostly body which is a very miserable type of existence. Miserable in the sense that just say you're hungry and you want to eat, but there's no food. Or saying that hungry, want to eat, but you're too sick and you can't eat at all. So there's a kind of a misery there that comes with the desire to want to eat and can't eat. I want to others, but I can't. I want to do something, can't. So that's a ghost body. A ghost has desires, but not the apparatus. Mm-hmm. And so then he has to live out that existence as a ghost body and then come back into another material body again. So suicide is never a solution for any kind of problem. It simply compounds the problem.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have heard, I don't know for authorized person or author from the scripture, that if person commits a suicide, then for 7 lifetimes they commit suicide. Is that true? I don't know. Yeah. This is what I
heard. You mean they've committed it before?
Yeah, they commit suicide, and then another they take 7 births, 7 more, no, so many births, but then they also commit suicide for at least for 7 more births.
I'd have to see that Shastra because it doesn't really resonate with any logic. I don't know. I'd have to know where that is in the Shastras. I can't really comment on that one.
Thank you, Maharaj. It was a very nice answer.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This is Komodaki Rasi.
Yeah, Komodaki. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Very, very nice class. Nicely you explain everything. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Mm-hmm.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the lovely class. I have a question in connection to the question asked just now regarding suicide, Guru Maharaj. The person who commits the suicide, actually, their mental condition is so bad, and it's not that easy to commit a suicide, basically, for a living human being, although they decide or think about it as well. But when the person is committing, they have got some solid reason behind that. So when they find the life is so difficult to live, and in certain cases, it is very difficult to live in that particular body, what should they do? What steps should they take?
Become Krishna conscious. Let them take shelter of Krishna. Give him the holy name. Give him a chance. First step is to somehow or other explain to them that there is a better life, and you can show them how they can experience that better life. Yeah, once you somehow or other can somehow indicate that suicide is not the solution. I mean, they have these things in the material world. They call them suicide hotlines. When people are about to commit suicide, so that you can call and somebody on the other end will answer, and you tell them you want to commit suicide, and then they speak to you in different ways, trying to dissuade you from doing it. But just dissuading people from doing it means you have to substitute something in its place. So we teach people that, life has value when it's connected with God, because God is the source of life. And you can find happiness in your relationship with God. So we want to somehow or other indicate that you can, go on with your life. It can get better, if you bring God into your life. Now, you might say, well, sometimes people are suffering physically. But you know, people who are suffering physically, the statistics are that very few people who suffer physically commit suicide. It's people who suffer mentally. They're the ones who commit suicide. Somehow you can tolerate physical. And so either they become suicidal, they become violent, they become alcoholics, they become drug addicts. You know, this is another ways of becoming suicidal. By somehow or other just living a different life where they think they can somehow forget about all their suffering. But you know, it's like the verse, napandapi napasyati. A person drinks, mistakenly they drink some poison, and then they reach for some antidote to neutralize the poison. What do they grab? Another bottle of poison. So the solution is to bring them to their relationship with Krishna. That's the only solution.
So Guru Maharaj, not everyone is that
Because
lucky to find someone, isn't it, to help them out.
No, you know, there was one devotee who set up a suicide hotline also. Just, he had it as a general thing, and people were calling, and he was trying to help them by bringing them to Krishna consciousness. It was a good form of preaching. He set it up where people were calling in, and then he would just bring them to Krishna. So yeah, there's attempts by compassionate devotees to somehow help people in different ways.
We should do
But
more of
the whole
that as
world's
well.
committing suicide. People are committing suicide simply by being materialistic. That's another form of suicide.
That's true, Maharaj. That's so true, Guru Maharaj. But
Yeah,
like
the Shastra says it's called Atma Janaha. Atmahatma. What is it? Atma Janaha or something.
Atmahatya, is it?
It's something like that, which means killer of the soul. So people are killing their souls simply under the name of material life.
That is absolutely true, Guru Maharaj. That's so true. Guru Maharaj, who was that, the devotees who had this suicidal helpline?
Oh boy, that's been so long ago.
Oh, is there anything like that going on?
Yeah, I think you might do a little research and see if you can find it. Nowadays, you can find anything through the internet, or even through the devotee channels.
Yeah. Okay.
I was traveling and I just happened to meet this person or hear about this person who was doing it, I think. It was just something I came across.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for your answer. That's a good help and gives me some thoughts now.
Yeah. The idea is if you meet a person like that, always be positive.
Because I come across those type of people through work, and I was just thinking how can we help?
Yeah, you can start generically with using terminology that is not so much identifying with a particular spiritual movement, but just general principles. Spiritual principles, moral principles. They're looking for love. They don't have anyone in their life that they can love, nor they can feel love. Show some kindness. If you show some kindness to them, and you do it in a caring way, which we try to, because we know that the soul is very dear to Krishna. And that helps them to be ready for whatever else you may say to them. They have to feel like somebody cares for them.
Agreed for that. Absolutely good point, Guru Maharaj. That's perfectly what I've seen that, yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Dipti.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
You know, I'm in London now.
Can I see you, Guru Maharaj? Any chance?
Come to the manor.
Manor? Okay. How
Yeah.
long?
I'd suggest you come on August 1st to the morning class, Bhagavatam class, August 1st.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll be there. We'll be giving initiations on that day, August 1st.
Oh, okay.
At the Haveli.
Oh, brilliant. Will you be there this Sunday as well, Guru Maharaj?
I'm here for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come on Sunday. If I can get chance morning aarti, I will be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be so nice to see you. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. This
Hare
Sunday,
Krishna.
this Sunday is a full day, so it might not work.
Oh.
Come at a different time.
Saturday? Saturday?
Oh, that's even more fuller.
Oh dear. Okay. Any evenings?
No, that won't work. Afternoons are good. Afternoons are good.
Just Guru Maharaj, I haven't got any holidays. I will try.
Come on the 1st of August, then I'll see you then.
Yeah, I will come on first. Definitely on first.
Okay.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's Tiffany again. Dipti's so lucky. I'm so she'll get to see you.
Come to London.
I would love to.
After a long time, Mataji.
I actually, there's a question in the chat box that Parima posted that I actually had a question about as well. She wrote, Hare Krishna Maharaj, what if a devotee commits suicide? And I had that question as well. How are we to look at that? It's so confusing when that happens.
It happened not long ago, about a year ago, one devotee in New Vrindavan committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been others also. Yeah, it's happened.
Mm-hmm. So how do we take that? How do we process that? What is,
Well, the mind can convince you of anything if you allow it. Mind can convince you that doing this is better than what you're doing now. That's why we shouldn't listen to our minds. You have to listen to the words of Guru, the words of Krishna, the words of Shastra, the words of the saints. Listening to the mind can cause us to develop the wrong ideas and wrong activities. The mind should only be listened to when it reflects the words of the Guru, Krishna, and the saints. If it doesn't reflect any of these, then the mind is simply becoming our enemy. That's all. It says that in the Bhagavad Gita, mind is the best friend or worst enemy. There's no greater enemy than than the mind. Prahlad Maharaj was preaching that to his father when his father was trying to, convince him to become a nice demon. And Prahlad was preaching to him Krishna consciousness. And then Hiranyakashipu said to Prahlad, "You're siding with my enemy, Vishnu. Vishnu is my enemy." Prahlad said, "My dear father, your only enemy is your own mind." We create friends and enemies based on the mind. As Walt Whitman says, the mind is a thing in itself and can create heaven out of hell and hell out of heaven. You can be in heaven and feel like you're in hell. You can be in hell and you can be completely aloof from everything about hell. It's all is consciousness, and it's reflected in that way. Really, you have an experience. We have an experience. We're in one. Mind is not there. Mind is somewhere else. So wherever you take your mind, you go. Mind takes you, you go. So you have to control the mind and bring it to Krishna, bring it words of Guru, and you're always in the best position for advancement and for happiness. You listen to the mind, it can, there's a whole, you'll call, actually this whole section on Judd Bart, right at the end, towards the middle of this chapter, no, next chapter, chapter 11. Chapter 11 is just full of verses on the mind. You'll see, and then you get into, other areas. It just goes on and on and on. This is a really the question is, does the deceased devotee become a devotee, become a ghost, despite the fact that he's chanting? He may have to be. I can't really say. That's under the laws of material energy. And the material energy works in different ways. It takes into account not only what's happening, but what is the person's past. But we can say for sure that if a devotee commits suicide, he may have to go into a ghost body for a little while. And then he realizes when he's there that he made a mistake. He may have to just experience that suffering for a while. But, what I'm saying is just conjecture based on the principle of how Krishna treats his devotees or how he helps his devotees. He always wants us to learn our lesson. It's not like when you're trying to teach someone, you have to teach them to learn a lesson so they don't make the same mistake again. An overprotective parent doesning allow its child to do anything, and therefore the child never learns. We call that helicoptering, helicoptering. That's the term they use. We have to experience life, just like sometimes we see, especially in Indian families, it happens mostly. The son grows up and he wants to leave home and, go out and do things. Doesn't want to live with the parents anymore. Parents can't understand why he's leaving because he wants to experience life on his own. He wants to break loose from the bonds of parental, jurisdiction. So we have to live life and learn from. Krishna consciousness, Krishna will give you a little slap for your wrong activity. So he'll allow material energy to slap you, but at the same time to help you learn. But it's not like the materialists who get really hit hard with the suffering. The devotee doesn't get the same kind of suffering, but he gets something to teach him. Lalita Tangi, you had a question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you so much for your. I'm still struggling to find a proper adjective for your class. So it's always like that. It touches the soul. Thank you so much. I just was looking into the 11th chapter that you said about mind, and I found this verse. So at the end of the chapter, the whole chapter is very instructive. And there is one more verse I was trying to find.
Number 17, is it?
Yeah, it's the last verse in the 11th chapter.
It's 17, yeah.
It's number 17, yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, if you read that verse, somebody can read it. Go ahead and read it.
Yeah, the uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O King, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. Can I read the purport also, Maharaj?
The first line of the purport is really interesting.
Yeah, purport. There is one easy weapon with which the mind can be conquered: neglect. The mind is always telling us to do this or that. Therefore, we should be very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually, the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul. It is not that one should obey the orders of the mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that to control the mind, one should beat it with shoes many times, just after awakening, and again before going to sleep. In this way, one can control the mind. This is the instruction of all the Shastras. If one does not do so, one is doomed to follow the dictations of the mind. Another bona fide process is to abide strictly by the orders of the spiritual master and engage in the Lord's service. Then the mind will be automatically controlled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed Srila Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. When one receives the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's real life begins. If one abides by the orders of the spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, he is freed from service to the mind. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mind is not a very good master. Have you ever had this experience? You're sitting up on a high position somewhere, maybe high up on a building or high in someplace, and you're looking down, and the mind tells you, jump.
Yeah.
You don't listen to it, but it has that way of reminding you how much it tries to ruin your life. Offer the sweet. Offer the sweet. Yeah, so the mind can tell you anything at any time. It can tell you something about someone one day and can tell you the opposite about the same person the next day. It's always changing, it's always flickering. Chanchala himana Krishna pramati pralabhadriha. It's chanchala. It's always flickering. And Krishna gives the instructions in the Bhagavad Gita, practice to control the mind and detach yourself from sense gratification. And that's what Prabhupada is basically saying here. You can only control the mind by putting the mind under the control of higher knowledge. Mm-hmm. If we listen to the mind, we're in trouble. There's no question about that. Put the spoon there too. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I had this experience recently. We visited the Niagara Falls from the Canada side. And surprisingly, what you said, I could see that usually in places like that where people would be tempted to jump, they would put some barricades or, try to stop people. But here it was just very easy to jump down. It was like that. And I was thinking, what you said, the same thing, it says that, it's true that how the mind, uncontrolled mind is the enemy.
Yeah, it has to be guided by intelligence, and intelligence has to be guided by higher knowledge. That's the formula for success. Intelligence guiding the mind in the right direction. You're chanting on your beads, your mind is thinking about everything. You tell your mind, shut up. I want to chant the holy name, and the mind is just trying to go somewhere else to satisfy its fantasies. So you employ the intelligence to pull back the mind and bring it back to the chanting.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Okay,
I think Maharaj Prasadam is ready. So,
Prasadam is ready.
Is that your Prasadam is ready, Maharaj?
It's out there. It's waiting.
Okay, yeah. So thank you so much for your association. Maybe Nina Mataji, we can conclude.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavad Pranam, all goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the beautiful, beautiful class. And thank you so much for the instructions and the reminding us we are not this body, we are the soul. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Jai Ho.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll see you everyone again in a couple of
Hare
weeks.
Krishna.
Haribo, Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
We got an audience darshan now. Okay. Halita and Dinabandhu. It must be getting warmer.
In Baltimore, it's getting cooler.
Baltimore, really?
Yeah.
I just heard a report from a devotee in New York today. She says there's big wildfires out in California. And the smoke is going into the air and it's carrying all the way into New York from California.
Yes,
so much so that the sky is actually misty. You can't even see the sun. Mm-hmm.
It's that way in Pennsylvania and Ohio as well.
Yeah, the material world is, you can always expect trouble, difficulty. The whole life in the material world is to fight against the difficulties. Yeah, that's all they're doing is fighting against difficulties. Spiritual life means to fight, to develop a condition where we don't have to fight against material. We have to tolerate the material difficulties and just go on with our Krishna consciousness, which is the source of happiness. If devotees plan a picnic and it rains, they can still chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But if the non-devotees plan a picnic and it rains, the whole day is ruined and everybody's unhappy. We're not dependent on the material energy. Dependent on Krishna. Krishna likes that. He likes when devotees are dependent on him. And if he has to create some difficulty in your life to make you dependent on him, he'll do it. That's his mercy. That's his mercy.
His mercy.
That's secondary. He wants us to do it voluntarily, but because we haven't completely got to that point yet, so he encourages us through some difficulties. Tatenu kampashu shamikshamanam ujaneva krita vivakam vidva bahubir vidadana miste jiveti yo mukti padesha dayabak. Yeah, very powerful verse. One who accepts difficulties that come as mercy of the Lord actually gets the mercy of the Lord in such a way that they become qualified to return back to the spiritual world. This world is full of suffering, that's all it is. Even so-called happiness goes on, is now another form of suffering, that's all. So the idea is to stay Krishna conscious, that's all. Become Krishna conscious and stay Krishna conscious. Can push back all the suffering of the material world. The example is, the material world is compared to an ocean, and on the other side of the ocean is the spiritual world. To cross an ocean is practically impossible. But if the ocean shrinks down to the size of a puddle, you can just walk over it. So that's devotional service. Shrinks this ocean of material existence down to a little watery puddle, and we can just cross it easily. No matter what happens, don't give up on Krishna. No matter what he does or doesn't do, stay with Krishna. It's always glorious in either the immediate or in the end. It's always glorious. Okay, I do have a few meetings right after lunch, so I should run.
Oh, Krishna, kept you waiting for so
thank you.
long. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Can offer obeisances to Maharaj and all the assembled devotees. Ancha kalpatarubhyascha
Vaishnavebhyo namo
Holiness Candramauli Maharaj.
Thank you.
Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj, very much.
Thank you.